My boyfriend, 22 male, compared me to his brother's perfect girlfriend and has started tearing apart our relationship. Original post. My boyfriend, Leo, and I are high school sweethearts and share an apartment with his brother, Noah. Noah has been seeing a woman named Chloe for the past 3 months. They met over Tinder, and with certain restrictions lifted, we're finally getting to spend time with her IRL. She's a really great person, and she and Noah are stupidly into each other, like accidentally finishing each other's sentences in love, staring at each other with big, gooey eyes in love. It's kind of gross but kind of sweet. A couple of days ago, I noticed that Leo's been acting weird. He's been a lot quieter and a bit colder to me, going to bed early, getting up late. I tried to kiss him, and he turned away. Yesterday, when Noah was out, I asked what was up with him. He started off kind of hostile, but when I said that I was really feeling hurt, he blew up. Summarized, he told me that he was rethinking our entire relationship after listening to his brother talk about Chloe. He said that Chloe asked for Noah's preference when she cut her hair and didn't get bangs when he said he thought they looked stupid when I got a pixie cut without asking Leo what he'd think first. He said that Chloe gave Noah a blowjob every night before bed and one every morning when he woke up, when I don't really like oral, giving, or receiving. He said I never offer to give him massages or pack his lunch. For clarification, I do things for him all the time, but we've never been lovey-dovey. We don't even celebrate Valentine's Day. His suggestion. We both always agreed it was stupid and unrealistic. In fact, we always used to make fun of people for being sappy and definitely gave Noah hell for a bit over being so gooey. He was crying by the end of it, saying that he felt sick over missing out on someone who would love him that much. I said I loved him, but he didn't want to hear it. He started gagging and threw up a little bit because he was crying so hard. I didn't know what else to do, so I got him some water and went to bed. I went to work early, and I've been hanging out at a coffee shop, but I have to go home soon. I have no idea where to go from here or what to say to him. I don't even know if we're still together. Help, just with all of this. Top comments. Comment 1. In a million years, I would never be able to look at my partner again if they said something like this to me. I'd be out the door for good. No thank you. That kind of entitlement and immaturity is a boner killer. Comment 3. He sounds like a grown-up version of Eric from South Park. Update 1. Sorry, I didn't respond to anyone's comments. I went home after posting, and by the time I logged back onto Reddit, the post had been locked. A few of you asked for the update, so here it is. I'm single. I came home, and Leo was gone. Noah was there, and asked if I could sit down for a bit. He wouldn't give me the exact details, but said that he and Leo had talked while I was out. He also showed me a few text messages to prove it. Apparently, Noah had never shared any details with his brother, but Leo had been able to hear them moaning through the walls when Chloe stayed over. It wasn't a bro talk or anything after all. Just the man I thought was going to marry me listening to his brother have sex through the walls. Neat. When Noah got home from work, Leo tried joking about it and made comments about Chloe's race. Noah kicked him out, and now Leo is going to be staying with their parents. So, I have to pay his share of the rent too because Noah refuses to let him in, and Leo refuses to come back. Double neat. A few people had questions, so here we go. Did Leo ever mention wanting romantic gestures? No. We actually got together because we were the only goths in school. We bonded over being against lovey-dovey stuff like that. We grew out of the edgy phase. But yeah, he always was firm he hated Valentine's Day and women who needed roses or gifts to feel loved. Has he ever done anything like this before? Now that I think about it, yeah. He's thrown tantrums before, but never like this. Things like restaurants carrying out orders incorrectly, forgetting his side dishes, or stores running out of his favorite items always made him really emotional. Why don't you like oral? A bad incident involving Leo's braces left me with some scarring down there. He liked deep-throating. 0 out of 10. I feel sorry for Chloe. I don't want to know any more details about their relationship, but they seem happy. They work at the same high-intensity job. Think physical trainers or occupational therapists. So she packs meal-prepped bento boxes for him and herself. Noah buys her flowers, fixes her car, goes over when spiders get into her apartment. Like I said, they're cute. This is fake. Listen, man, that's your right to believe it. I think it's fake, and I'm the one that has to figure out how to ship 200 Funko Pops to my ex. So there you go. Top comments. Comment 1. I'm the one that has to figure out how to ship 200 Funko Pops to my ex. Nope. His brother can figure that out. That dude is no longer your responsibility. You also don't have to pay double rent. Leo can pay rent for a place he doesn't live in. You need to find a new place to live so you don't have to be surrounded by a reminder of your past relationship. Comment 2. He had 200 Funko Pops? It was doomed from the start. This is a repost sub. I am not the OP. I was always ignored by my parents as I grew up. My parents pulled me back home and forced me to take responsibility for my brother. When I started packing and left, my parents barely noticed. I was 25 at the time, just out of college, and ready to go it alone. However, I wasn't surprised by it. All my life, I had been the youngest of 5 children. I mean significantly younger when I say youngest. Emily, who is the next oldest, is 7 years older than I am. I'm different from the rest in a lot more ways. As a child, I occasionally felt like I didn't exist. My siblings continued to have affairs. Everything was left to me to handle. You've heard of glass children, youngsters whose siblings demand so much attention that they are ignored or become invisible. I guess I was one. My brothers were constantly in and out of treatment programs, therapists' offices, and hospitals. For whatever reason, I became the kid who didn't require much. Since I was okay, I didn't cause problems because I wasn't as ill or having difficulties as others were, so I was overlooked. I don't think that was intentional, but that's how it ended up. I didn't get the best attention. I can't say I had a terrible upbringing. I had everything I could possibly need in terms of food, shelter, and clothes. However, I didn't exist emotionally. No one asked how my day went or whether I needed homework assistance. I improved my self-entertainment skills. It turns out that video games became my friend. Books gave people a way to escape. I would immerse myself in imaginary worlds while my brothers were losing themselves in real-life problems. I guess it was a survival strategy, although I didn't know it at the time. Since I knew I wasn't creating any issues, I kept under the radar. I was not required to volunteer as a caregiver, in contrast to some others who had ailing family members. All of that was handled by my parents. I guess this was how they protected themselves, but they ignored me in the process. Although I didn't receive much attention, I also wasn't pressured to mature too soon. When all of your efforts are focused on keeping one or more children alive, the person who is not in crisis gets lost. I was that person. It wasn't completely awful. Laura and Sophie, who were basically my saviors, became my friends by the time I was 9. We connected over that unspoken knowing, even if their houses weren't very attractive either. All we had to do was understand one another. We didn't need to tell each other why we felt ignored or invisible. We would spend hours at one another's houses to avoid the drama in our own families. Compared to the family I was born into, Laura and Sophie felt more like my own family. By the time we started middle school, we were clinging to each other like lifeboats in a hurricane. It wasn't much different in high school. My relationship with my parents remained distant, but my relationships with Laura and Sophie grew closer. We had ups and downs like any other adolescent, but the 3 of us remained close. We decided to attend the same university after graduating together. It was almost a given. When it came time for college, we would go together. Of course, it had nothing to do with academics or the school, but rather with maintaining our small family. After doing so, we remained inseparable for 4 years. After graduation, we decided to move to a different state, away from the chaos we were accustomed to. We set up our life in a tiny apartment. It was wonderful to be out on our own and finally focus on ourselves rather than balancing years of familial burdens. My parents barely heard from me for a while after that. I didn't imagine they would suddenly become interested in my life now because, to be honest, we hadn't talked much even when I was living at home. My mother would occasionally text me, generally with trivial questions like, "How's work?" or "What are you up to?" However, we rarely actually talked about anything. It was better that way, or at least that's how I saw it. I no longer required their attention. Sophie and Laura were enough. For once, I didn't feel like an abandoned child because we all had our own lives and goals. I was rather proud to have started a small family of my own. When my mother called last year, that began to alter. Thanksgiving was a few days away. I knew something was awry when her name appeared on my screen because I hadn't spoken to her on the phone in over a year. The last time Mom called, it was to let me know about my sister's burial arrangements. So phone calls always made me wonder. She immediately got to work, asking me what time I was leaving for Thanksgiving at home. I was, to put it mildly, perplexed. First of all, I was unaware that they were even celebrating Thanksgiving because we didn't really observe holidays. We celebrated Christmas and Thanksgiving fewer times than I can count on one hand when I was a child. It was just not a trait of our family. Given our long-standing tradition, it seemed inappropriate to hear her ask in this manner. I told her I wouldn't be attending. Laura, Sophie, and I had been planning a ski trip for months. I couldn't possibly cancel that with only 3 days' notice. Aside from that, I couldn't afford a last-minute plane ticket because I lived 2 states away. My mom didn't get it. She acted as if I was being deliberately difficult when I tried to explain it to her, guilt-tripping me by saying that she would be alone herself because my dad was spending Thanksgiving with my brother Mike at the facility where he works. It seems that Mom would spend the majority of the day alone while my dad was away. See, I got this. I understood why she wanted company, but she gave me 3 days' notice. She thought I would drop everything. When I told her again that I couldn't make it, she got upset and began to act as if I didn't care about the family. She said I was self-centered. After that, she hung up. For a while, I sat there feeling a peculiar mixture of regret and bitterness. Where had they been for me all those years? Even though I felt bad for abandoning her, I was now the bad guy for not dropping everything to go home after not hearing from them for months. I searched through my old texts for something I might have missed. However, nothing was present. Thanksgiving is not mentioned. You didn't say you wanted to come see me. I was more perplexed by this last-minute guilt trip than anything else. Later that night, I texted her to let her know that I would also be unable to attend Christmas. We planned to go on another excursion. She never responded. When I said that I would love to catch up after the new year, I made an effort to be civil. The fact that a few days passed with no reaction was not shocking. I made an effort to get rid of the weird feeling that had entered my stomach, but it persisted. In hindsight, I think that phone conversation was only the beginning of something much bigger, something I hadn't anticipated at that time. I had no idea how far this disaster would spread. I thought things would settle down after that odd Thanksgiving discussion, but my dad texted me a week or so later. I never get texts from my dad. He's more of a talk when necessary type of guy. Let me tell you, I therefore thought there must be a severe issue when his name appeared on my phone. However, what I read when I opened the message seemed implausible. I genuinely burst out laughing. If you don't come home for Christmas, I'm cutting off your college payments. What exactly? I received my degree 3 years ago. No more college payments needed to be stopped. I tried to be lighthearted at first, thinking that perhaps he had confused me for one of my siblings or something. 3 years had passed with no payments. Check your bank account maybe. That, I thought, would be the final word. I reasoned that he would realize his mistake, laugh it off, and move on. Nevertheless, my phone buzzed again a few hours later. The message was longer this time around. Yes, my dad was very angry. He went on to talk about my selfishness, how I was abandoning the family, and how I didn't appreciate all the sacrifices my parents had made for me and my siblings. At this moment, I was just staring at my phone in amazement. I had never once made a request of them. To be honest, I was unaware that they believed they were covering my education expenses. All of my costs, including tuition, had been covered by Grandma. To be honest, I was relieved that she wanted my parents to be removed from that area of my life and out of the spotlight. My dad was trying to put me through this whole guilt trip, and it seemed completely unexpected. I'm sorry you feel that way, but Granny paid for my college. After the holidays, I'm glad to catch up, but I already have Christmas plans, I said after taking a big breath. I assumed that would end it, but it didn't, of course. Instead, he became more focused. He started talking about how the family was supporting me, how I was rejecting them, and how I didn't care about them. Twice, I was just done. It seemed so absurd when I couldn't even try to spend the holidays at home. When I moved out, people barely noticed that I had been living alone for years. Now, all of a sudden, I was abandoning the family because I was not returning home for Christmas. The more I considered this, the more angry I got. I tried to brush it off and move on, but I couldn't help but notice how hypocritical it seemed. They hadn't inquired about my well-being, asked if I needed anything, or checked in on me for months, but I was supposed to drop everything and run when they asked for something. If not, I was the selfish one. It made no difference. I had the impression that I was merely a fallback option for them, someone they could depend on only when it was practical. I called Laura and Sophie to vent my frustration. As usual, they understood immediately. Laura said my parents probably just wanted to exploit me to boost their own self-esteem. She stated plainly, they don't really care if you're there. Sophie agreed with me. Screw them. They just want to feel like they fulfilled their role as parents by getting you home for the holidays. You owe them nothing. That was it. It was just what I needed to hear. I owed them nothing. I made the decision to sleep on it that night before responding to my dad once more. I didn't want to make a mistaken statement. However, my phone buzzed once more as I laid there attempting to let it go. My dad sent me another stern message. If you don't come home, don't bother coming back at all. I froze as I gazed at the screen. It was like being punched in the stomach. How did we arrive here? From hardly speaking to him to my own father essentially disowning me over Christmas. I wanted to react angrily, to confront him about all the times I felt invisible in that house and how they had ignored me. However, I decided not to respond. I laid over, put my phone down, and attempted to fall asleep. I had no intention of letting this derail my vacation plans. I received multiple more texts the following morning, this time from my mother. I couldn't help but giggle since they were more of the same. Expressions of displeasure and perplexity over why I was being so detached, separated. They were just now realizing that I had been aloof throughout my life. I ignored the texts and focused on preparing for the ski trip. This had taken months of preparation, and Laura, Sophie, and I refused to let my parents bring me down with shame. We drove the following day, and I felt liberated for the first time in a long time. I wasn't feeling guilty about it, not with my parents in mind. I was content to spend time with the people who genuinely loved me. Naturally, though, things can't stay that way forever. My mother sent me another letter in the midst of my trip, just when I thought I could relax. It had nothing to do with Christmas this time. If I don't come home soon, she added, they'll have to start making decisions about my future without me, which I don't enjoy. That's when it struck me. It had nothing to do with Christmas or the holidays, did it? They were planning something bigger, something much more. Maybe it was about my brother Mike, maybe about the house or the family finances. However, I was aware of one thing. They wanted me to be involved in whatever it was, not because they were missing me. They needed me for whatever reason. That was their insurance strategy. The realization came as a shock. All this time, I thought they were just trying to guilt-trip me into a homecoming for Christmas. I was never personally concerned about it, though. It was all about them. They cared because they wanted to spend time with me? No, they didn't care if I was present, and I refused to allow them to drag me back into their mess. After that, I stopped reading their messages. I made an effort to be in the moment and not think about what was waiting for me at home as I spent the remainder of the ski trip with Laura and Sophie. We drank too much hot chocolate, joked, and went skiing. It was just what I needed to re-energize. However, the peace would not endure. After the ski trip, I came home and made an effort to reorganize my routine. It felt good to be temporarily removed from all the family conflict, but I knew it would only last. Yes, my oldest brother, Nick, called me a few days later. It had been months, perhaps longer, since we had spoken. I therefore knew this would not be a casual talk when I saw his name on my phone. Nick was the one brother I ever thought would be sympathetic to me. I always believed that our relationship might have been better because he wasn't as ill as our other brothers. However, he was enmeshed in his own life, just like the rest of our family. When his name appeared, I paused. Curiosity won me over, even if I wanted to ignore it. Nick jumped right in before I could say hello. Mom and Dad have been talking about making you the legal guardian for Michael when they're gone. I sat there in shock for a moment. I felt like I was struck out cold by someone. Was this a prank of some sort? They had barely been in my life for years, and now they were going to force Michael's care on me? Throughout his life, Michael has spent time in and out of care facilities. What on earth? Finally, trying to maintain a calm tone, I asked, "What are you referring to?" My heart was pounding. Nick let out a sigh, as if he were annoyed that I wasn't accepting this news with grace. You know the situation with Mom and Dad. They're not going to be around permanently, and they need someone to look after things when they go, I said in a trembling voice. And they consider someone to be me? After everything? After all the ignoring and guilt-tripping, they just believe I'll abandon my life and take up their mess. Nick didn't seem to get why I was offended. Look, you're the only one truly steady among the lot. The others have personal problems. You really have your life together. I almost burst out laughing. Altogether? What am I living? Yes, I had a solid job, a home, and I wasn't constantly in and out of hospitals, but it didn't mean I was prepared to care for someone, especially after years of treatment that was practically non-existent. Maybe you guys should have considered this before now, I said, growing increasingly irritated. They never bothered me about this. Nick came across as defensive, like you said, as if everything was already decided behind your back. Until lately, I also knew neither. Still, I considered you should hear it from me before they tried to spring it on you. This has nothing to do with Christmas. Now, the scope of this went beyond a holiday. Michael's parents had big plans for him, and they hadn't even looked to see if I was prepared to take on that kind of responsibility. They just assumed I would. I said, what then? Am I meant to move back home, drop my entire life, and give up all I have worked for to take care of Michael? Nick had no answer for that. I didn't give a damn. I had been ignored my entire life because I wasn't causing trouble. Despite his attempts to convey how hard things were for our parents and how they were balancing Michael's care problems, since I wasn't crumbling like the others, I was destined to assume this massive responsibility. There was not enough fairness. I interrupted him in the middle and said, "I'm not doing it. I won't be their backup. Not here for a minute." Nick remained quiet. They didn't care about me for the last 25 years, and they don't deserve to make me answerable for anything now. He continued, "I get it. I do indeed. Still, you are a member of the family." I wanted to yell when I heard the word family. A family? Which family? The family that abandoned me while I was growing up? The family that only gets in touch with me when they need something? I did belong to the family, but only because it was convenient for them, I said, sounding resentful. They turned their backs on me a long time ago. I'm just finally walking away. There was silence on the other end of the telephone. After letting out a sigh, Nick remarked, "I'll tell them." After hanging up, I sat there and stared at the wall while attempting to sort everything out. There was a part of me that wanted to shout, throw something, and release all the anger I had accumulated over the years. Nevertheless, I simply felt lethargic and, to be honest, exhausted. I completed their contingency plan. I was expected to step up when things become difficult, but I was done being invisible when it was convenient. I didn't hear from Nick or my parents for a few days. It was as if they were waiting for me to realize my mistake and become the good daughter they had suddenly decided I should be. Even if I changed my mind, I would not move. I got a letter in the mail one afternoon. I wasn't going to let them burden me with their problems because I had my own life. This was from my mother. She had sent a letter instead of calling, maybe in keeping with our 1800s lifestyle or something. The letter was lengthy and haphazard, and it contained the same guilt-tripping nonsense I had heard my entire life. She went on to talk about how much they relied on me, how hard their lives were, and how they weren't sure what to do if I weren't there. What really got me, though, was the letter's final line. "Emily, we are not asking for much," she wrote. That's when I realized they weren't begging me to be a part of their everyday life or missing me. This had to do with their wish for someone to clean up their mess when they were gone. When the family was gone, someone was needed to fill in. It was convenience, not connection or love. They wanted to patch things up because I was the only one who wasn't crumbling. I ripped the letter to pieces and tossed it in the trash. When I folded up that letter from my mother, I felt like I had gone as far as I could. I'm finished. I had nothing else to say to them. After years of disregard and usage when it was convenient, they wanted me to take the burden. Of course not. That, I decided, was the end. I blocked their phones after throwing away the letter. It was not the end, of course. A knock on my door occurred a few weeks after I had blocked their numbers. Since it was a weekday, I didn't anticipate anyone. I thought it might be a delivery at first, but my mother was simply standing there when I unlocked the door. She stood on my front porch as if she had a lot of right to be there. I hesitated, unsure if I should slam the door in her face or listen to her. Her appearance had altered. Maybe she was older. Maybe she was just more tired. She wasn't the same woman I'd known growing up. For whatever reason, I was unable to determine if it was the years, the stress, or another factor. I didn't feel sorry for her, though, not after everything. I tried to speak steadily as I asked, "This is where you are working?" She took a while to respond. She just stood there looking at me as if she had forgotten who I was. Finally, "We need to talk, Emily," she said. I let out a groan. "No, we truly do not. I have said all I need to say." She took a step forward as if she were going inside, but I remained motionless. I had made the decision not to let her in, despite all the deceit and guilt trips. Knowing I wouldn't move, she paused, and her voice grew softer. "Your father's condition is growing worse. He visits the hospital in and out. We have no idea how long he has left, my Emily." I had no idea what to do. The "your father is dying" card was the one she had been waiting to play. She didn't say anything direct, but I could tell what she was attempting to say. And see, I'm not ruthless. I didn't want my dad to suffer. However, I couldn't just abandon everything and rush to their side like a docile child after everything they had done to me. "I apologize," I responded, attempting to sound composed. "Still, this is not my issue. Years of figuring this out have gone between you and Dad. You cannot simply turn here right now and expect me to make everything right." She gave me the impression that I had struck her. "I'm not calling for your fixing of anything," she replied. "Simply put, I need you there for the family." Once more, that word, family. I almost burst out laughing. Which family? The one who turned away from me 25 years ago? The one that only speaks with me when they need something? "Mom," That family is not what we have. That's manipulation. I thought she was going to argue with me, but she just broke down in tears. My mother began crying on my doorstep, and I was at a loss for what to do. Furthermore, I couldn't just watch her cry. However, I had no intention of inviting her inside. Look, I replied, lowering my voice despite myself. I understand this presents challenges for you. I really do. I am not, however, your fallback option. I won't be the one to come and put things under control. You have to face the consequences of your decision. For a minute, I saw anger flicker over her face as she dried her tears and looked up at me. Emily, we did the best we could. You are not aware of what it was like raising all of you and juggling everything. We were trying to keep everyone else alive. Hence, we ran out of time for you. I had heard the same explanation a million times before. I had a firm voice. I said, and that's not my fault. You decided to bear 5 children. You decided to drop me behind and concentrate on everyone else. Not mine. That was your choice, and right now you're attempting to shame me about it. Mom, I am not going to do it. She looked at me for a long time, as if she had forgotten who I was. Maybe she still thought of me as the quiet student who never caused trouble and could be ignored because I didn't require her. However, that child had vanished. They couldn't use me to clean up their mess since I wasn't invisible. Thus, that's it, she said in a cold tone. You're just going to ignore us? She finally questioned. I gave a headshake. Not yes. Many years ago, you turned away from me. After that, remained silent. I'm just finally walking away. All she did was turn and go back to her car. I watched her leave while feeling a weird mixture of feelings. Of course, I was depressed, but I felt liberated most of the time. It seemed like I had finally let go of something that had been bothering me for years, something I should have let go of a long time ago. I went back inside and took a seat, attempting to organize things. I was no longer angry with her. I wasn't even injured. All I did was carry on. I had a life to live, and I refused to allow them to drag me back into their mess, despite the humiliation, the manipulation, and the constant feeling of inadequacy. There was silence for the following few weeks. No texts, no calls, no mail. It seemed like a huge burden had been lifted off my shoulders, and they finally appeared to understand that I would not be coming back. I focused on my life, my career, and my friends. I didn't keep an eye on myself, anticipating the next guilt trip. I was defying established conventions. Their expectations were no longer a burden on me. After about a month, Nick sent me an email. It was only a few sentences long, but it covered everything I needed to know. Last night, Dad passed away. I'm not sure how to feel. I thought you ought to be aware. I spent a lot of time looking at the email. It wasn't shocking to me. This was headed my way, I knew. To be honest, I didn't feel depressed or anything else. Actually, I did nothing. I thought about answers for a while. I thought about calling Nick to see how he was doing and maybe even to offer my condolences. But then I realized that this was only another stage in the same cycle, another chance for them to pull me back in. And this time, I hadn't been duped. Without replying, I dismissed the email and continued with my day. I had finally come to terms with leaving their world. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.